From an island, its natives live in complete isolation and kill anyone who tries to visit them. For a cursed village, its inhabitants only live to be 35 years old. From the super rare halos that appear in the middle of Greenland to the most distant landmass on the entire planet. Here are the most isolated places on Earth.
Before that, newcomers to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and follow me on other social media too. Want to know more information about the video? Please visit the website link in description.
What if I told you there is a country where not a single case of COVID-19 has been recorded? The place is Nauru, the world's smallest republic. It is only 21 square kilometers in size, less than half the area of Manhattan. But Nauru currently has less than 200 visitors a year. It is the least traveled country in the world. The fact that it survived the disaster may also be one of the reasons for the low number of tourists. About 200 years ago, Europeans discovered phosphate deposits and turned the entire beautiful island into a huge mine. But when phosphate reserves were depleted in the 1990s, what remained in the mines was a disastrous environment. Today, Nauru is barren and 80% of the entire island is covered by limestone. Brutal mining also polluted nearby waters and destroyed its ancient coral reefs. Speaking of islands, our next destination is North Sentinel Island, whose natives have lived in isolation for the past 30,000 years. It is officially controlled by India. But if you have the foolish idea to ask the people who live there, they will kill you. In fact, they attack anyone who tries to enter this island. In 2018, local tribes killed an American tourist who tried to visit the island. John Allen Chow, 26 years old, paid fishermen to smuggle him to the island. The fishermen warned him not to go, but when he arrived he did not listen and was immediately killed with arrows by the locals. Other tribal groups near the islands are also wary of the Northern Sentinels. At this stage they lived so far apart that they could not understand their own language. But some still made the mistake of visiting the island. Trinag Nath Pandit Indian anthropology in the 19th century, he sends gifts like coconuts and fruits. In 1991, he finally made contact. He could not understand their language and communication was difficult. Immediately a boy made a gesture that he was going to cut off his head. By 1996, they stopped offering gifts and the Indian Navy established a buffer zone to deter curious visitors. Speaking of less touristy places, our next destination is North Korea. It is one of the most isolated countries in the world. After the end of the Korean War about 70 years ago, the country split into North and South Korea. North Korea became a communist country and closed itself off from the rest of the world. According to Voy, you can own a computer only with permission from the government. You may access some government-controlled websites. Any information about its leader Kim Jong-un would be very helpful. According to local news, he could drive at the age of 3, discovered a cure for cancer and could even control the weather. The country has a wealthy elite class and a functional middle class. But most people in North Korea are poor and struggle for basic goods. In 2020, North Korea ordered its citizens to give up pets used for meat due to food shortages, Sky News reported. International travel is very limited, and anyone visiting is under strict surveillance. People with US and South Korean passports are generally not allowed in, as North Korea considers these countries enemies. Most tourists come from China. North Koreans cannot freely move around the country, let alone travel to another country. Since the end of the Korean War, an estimated 300,000 have managed to escape. But if you get caught, you can be sent to a prison camp or killed. After all, if you escape, the government will come and send your family members to a prison camp. So most people are stuck in this politically isolated place, with little or no contact with the outside world. Siwa in Egypt is one of the most remote oases in the world. Although part of Egypt, the region has its own language and culture. It is a place you can see, but very difficult to reach. To get to Siwa, you need to take a bus from Cairo, which takes about 9 to 12 hours to travel through the flat and remote terrain. However, in recent years, more and more people are trying to reach this isolated oasis, as it has received a major tourism boost since being shared on Instagram. Oasis salt pools have high salt content, the water is very clear and does not require moving a muscle to float. Pictures on Instagram make you look like you're floating on air. So far we've only been to places with tropical or warm climates, but what about up north? Welcome to Itokortormiite in Greenland. The location is so isolated that its guest house, Itogertjermit, is known as the most remote hotel on Earth. No cars, no phone signals. It is within reach of the average tourist. Greenland has the lowest population per square kilometer anywhere in the world. Its average population is 0.0 people per square kilometer. The majority of its 57,000 people live in its capital, Nuuk. In Itokortormiite, residents have access to heat and electricity and Wi-Fi in the local recreation area. You can order something on Amazon and it will eventually arrive on a chartered flight that travels every 2 months, but if you want to go further north, you can go to Canada for caution. It is the northernmost continuously inhabited place in the world. But traveling here is easy. It is not a village or town, but a military base for the Canadian Army. According to 2018 data, 80 people live there and they are 800 kilometers away from the nearest community. So even by plane it takes at least an hour to reach the nearest city. But loneliness isn't the only thing that makes a sober life difficult. Summer has 24 hours of sunlight, but winter has 24 hours of darkness. As such, you will be medically screened prior to arrival, and anyone suffering from stress or alcoholism is advised not to go. Limited to 2 alcoholic drinks per day during your stay. In winter, the temperature drops below -50 degrees Celsius. Staying out in this cold for too long can lead to loss of consciousness, hypothermia, and death.